Well, guys, your girl finally made it to Midgar.
Yuffie. My name is Yuffie, Materia Hunter and Elite Special Forces operative for the new Wutai government. I have orders to infiltrate Shinra headquarters and steal their ultimate materia. To prove to our common enemy that Wutai is not to be trifled with. Members of Avalanche! With your full support, we got this! So, members of Avalanche, where are you? Come get me already! Okay, if I was a man in a Moogle hat... Wait, does this mean what I think it does? Interesting. So, I gotta come to you, do I? You got some nerve.
Well, although it took me a little longer than expected, welcome to Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, a essentially DLC episode showing an alternate perspective during some events of the main game, where we play as Yuffie. Yuffie is a main character from the original game, but she joined your party after you left Midgar. So this DLC is an opportunity to kind of give you a glimmer to show you what other characters were doing before they joined the main party later on. And I'm gonna say right now, this DLC is the biggest testimony of hope that I have towards part 2 onwards. Because as we saw at the end of the main game, things are going to be changing and things are going to be a bit different moving forward. I love this DLC. It's not perfect. I'll point out some of the things I don't like as and when they come around. But as a whole, this is entirely new content. This isn't referencing or showcasing stuff from the original that's been reworked. This is entirely new storytelling. So they didn't have anything to fall back on. And I think they do a really good job here. There's some, like I said, there are cracks, and I will point them out as and when, but I really enjoy it. The biggest thing, however, isn't the story. As we went through the main game, I criticised a few things in the gameplay loop. Yuffie is a giant testimony to the fact that they were listening. Yuffie is great fun to control in this game. In fact, I'd say that she's the most fun character to play as, because they took the lessons they learned from the main game and applied it to her as they went on. She's a physical character that has air options. Cloud and Tifa wish they got that, and I really hope they get it in part 2. But Yuffie, she has 2 different stances. She has when her weapon's in her hand and when her weapon is thrown. When a weapon is thrown, she has an entirely magic-based moveset instead of physical-based, which if you use the ninjutsu techniques, you can alter what element they are, kind of defeating the need for you to put fire, ice, thunder, wind on her, because you can just use the ninjutsu to make the most of it instead, which is kind of what I do as we go on throughout this. Additionally, when you hold the button, it will use a specialized attack that will alter the stance as well. So if you hold the attack button whilst you're in weapon thrown mode, she will slam the ground with like a weaker version of like the first glimmers of Quake, it feels like. As in Quake the spell, even though you don't get it in this. and she will retrieve her weapon automatically, so you can alternate between the stances through your combo making. You can magic the heck out of them, whack them towards yourself, hold down square to slam the ground, get your weapon back, and immediately start ripping into them with your weapon in hand. You just saw me do it there and throw it back. When your weapon's thrown, if you go to retrieve it, Yuffie will go to the weapon, not the other way around. So aerial enemies are barely a blip on the radar for this physical character, because you can bring the weapon to the enemy and make it so you get to choose when you go in the air or not. Additionally, she has a technique, Windstorm, you just saw it there, that pulls enemies in towards her. Or to be more accurately, it pulls enemies in towards the weapon. So if you throw it out, you can make designated spots to lure enemies in. And the game encourages you to do that, because if you use Windstorm when the weapon's out, for some strange reason that isn't explained, it does a hell of a lot more damage. In fact, it's actually going to rinse a boss later on. We're going to destroy a boss before it even gets a chance to stand by using thrown Windstorms.
No palm. You okay? Anybody home?
And even Yuffie isn't immune from bumping into the strange hooded people that we encountered on the main journey, and that are greatly significant to the actual storyline of Final Fantasy VII. And here we get introduced to something else that was their effort of trying to address criticism a little bit, with as much as they could, considering it's, you know, based in Midgar still, so there's only so much they can do. I think it'll be part 2 onwards where we'll really see them make the most of this adjustment. You get a lot more level interaction than the main journey ever got. And it's not like a designated, like, scripted sequence like with Barret and Tifa. No, Yuffie gets to be more interactive with the environment as a whole for a lot of the run through this DLC. Showing that, yeah, they are prepared, because that was one of the bigger criticisms of the game, is that level design. The corridor, if you're going to do corridor simulator, you need to have new things spicing up the corridor constantly. And the original, the main story of VII Remake doesn't do it enough. It does it on occasion, but it doesn't feel like it flows with it properly. It's a designated chapter dedicated to a Barret section. It's a designated section in the earlier part of a chapter that's a Tifa section, and then that's it. Whilst with Yuffie, they keep this riding throughout the whole thing. She can interact with the environment a heck of a lot more than Cloud and the gang ever could. And it's not just as simple as, you know, right now finding an elevator or lift if you're British like me and pressing a button. There will be walls we'll be able to run across later on. You already saw us throw our shuriken at boxes to break them from a distance instead of having to try and find a way to get up to them. There's going to be, if you see a pole and it goes down but lower down, run at it, because you can probably slide down it. You're going to see often throughout this, I put on like green materia more for the sake of filling a slot until I get something I want. The game will also highlight whenever there's something you can interact with like a little cursor on the screen that you saw just there. And there it is again. It's pointing at the button on the lift if I wanted to bring it back down. And I like the nod, the reference that Yuffie is wearing the Moogle hoodie, or the Moogle cloak. I can't remember if it was... I think it was Dirge. I think it was Dirge or Cerberus is where it came from. It might be Crisis Core, but I really doubt it. I don't think it was Crisis. I think she was too young in the events of Crisis. It's just, I know it was one of the later spin-offs of like the expanded universe compilation of Final Fantasy things. It wasn't like Advent or before Crisis. I don't even think she was in before Crisis. I'm going to say Dirge. I might be wrong. It's been an extremely long time since I've played Dirge, and if I'm honest, I'm not going to go back to find out if I'm right or not. Dirge isn't something anyone really goes back to voluntarily. But speaking of, Dirge is something that kind of gets the Hot Topic references a lot during this. There were a few glimmers of references to Advent and a few references to Before Crisis and Crisis Core in the main game, but they pretty much didn't touch Dirge at all in terms of referencing. This kind of fills the gap. I won't spoil it, obviously, but there are going to be a couple of moments where they nod to Dirge, sometimes subtly, sometimes more directly, to kind of acknowledge its existence, even though I think it's like based the latest in the timeline of the original set. Like, I think it's after Advent Children. I don't think it's before. I might be wrong on that, because once again, it's been a very long time since I've bothered with Dirge, and I'm not about to go back to find out if I'm right or not. Also, if you sprint and then jump onto like a finish pole or anything like that where Yuffie will balance on, she'll trip as she does. But if you're not sprinting, she'll land on it smoothly. Oh, this is the if you've only come back to it to play this DLC and it's been a while since you played the main game, I can almost guarantee you'll game over on this fight. Because the DLC, like a lot of games that have like story mode DLC afterwards, the story mode kind of expects you to have played the original story, and so bases its difficulty around it a little bit. Not by too much in this instance, like it's still around the same difficulty wise as a whole. It's just some mini fights, like some mini boss fights, might catch you off guard on your first run. And I've seen a few people lose to the final boss of this DLC a fair number of times before they get the rhythm. When we get that far, you'll see that there's a very comfortable way of dealing with, well, pretty much all the bosses in this. Like I said, her wind ability, throw it out then use it, for some reason it just rips. It just does insane damage. Like if you just use it when it's still in your hand, it doesn't do that level of damage, but if you throw it and use it, it would demolish. And the Whack-A-Box mini-game that we'll be doing later on is the perfect opportunity to showcase what I mean, because it will destroy the 1500 boxes in one. You know, something that usually requires like an infinite edge from Cloud to destroy in one. No, it will destroy them in one. Yet if it's in my hand and destroy it, it requires two and a combo before it breaks. Like, it's baffling the power difference of using the technique once your weapon's thrown. She also has an attack-based skill, which you're going to see me use it every now and then to showcase it, but I don't usually dedicate to using it. Because the main reason why you'd only be using it is to build up an ability she gets later on called Banishment. Which, yes, I know I'm talking about skills she hasn't got yet, but Yuffie is kind of dictated by her skills in a lot of ways. Like, she's got the best basic moveset of all the characters, but all of her combat leans into what you can get out of her skills to turn the tide of battle. It's what makes her the most interesting, because it doesn't just feel like the techniques are an extra part of the kit. It feels like it is the kit, you know? And on top of that, she still has better basic combat. As I said, she's got the aerial, she's got the you choose when you go to the sky instead of the game picks. It's got the fact that if you hold the button when you've got the weapon in hand, she will kick off and make distance, so you can alter the distance without having to worry about dodging all the time. It's a lot of things like that that just make Yuffie really fun to play, and if I'm honest, going into part 2 might make her in main party if they let me choose. If they pick for me, then so be it. I'm sure there'll be moments, but in the original 7, I never put Yuffie in the main party, but I'm genuinely considering it because she's so damn fun in this. But unfortunately, by nature of it being a DLC based in the same game that's super high budget and hyper detailed and is a big stressor of resources, a lot of this DLC takes place in environments we've been to before. Like, we just did like a newest section, but now we're actually in the scrap area or outside Sector 7, where we grinded up like some early quests at the start of the game. So yeah, like, it's not all brand new. There are new sections, and we'll get to them as we get to them. There's a really fun one on the later half of this chapter that I always giddy to talk about because it's amazing. It's so like light-hearted fun with enough bounce and also kind of doing a good job at showcasing what Yuffie's really like. Because Yuffie, she's got a very like kid mindset on everything. Like, she's a little bit older than the game likes to pretend she is. Like, everyone pretends she's just like a 10-year-old kid, but no, she's clearly older than that. But she does definitely have like a very childish mentality and view on everything around her. And you get to feel that in the gameplay in a lot of ways.
The situation is under control, and the people of our fair city need not worry about any additional complications. We're in the process of conducting a full forensic investigation, but we suspect the device used was similar to that incurred in the attack on Mako Reactor 1.
Oh, what do we have here? Man, that's gotta be Avalanche. Not bad. Not bad at all. But I can do better.
Yuffie? Yo.
What? There's her palm. So, you're Avalanche?
I'm Jija. Follow me.
What? Wait up!
Also, small thing, and I noticed it immediately, and I adore it, because I think it was the perfect actress choice. Yuffie is voiced by Susie Young, who you might recognize more recently as the voice of Eula Lawrence from Genshin Impact. Yes, that very stiff upper-lipped, posh lady of vengeance with the deep and demanding voice is also the cutesy goofball Yuffie in this, and I genuinely think she was the perfect choice. This is how Yuffie always should have sounded to me, and it's not a discredit to the actresses that have played her in the past, but this to me was like quintessential Yuffie performance. Also, Jesse, Biggs and Wedge are just kind of over here chilling, which gives you a little bit of an idea of when this is based in the timeline. You also already saw from that news report that this happened after the second reactor's gone off, but before, you know, Sector 7 was attacked for the bombings. This plate obviously hasn't come down yet because the base is still here, so this is around the time Cloud was first hanging out with Aerith. Like, just after he crashed in the church is when Yuffie's story begins, to give you some idea of when it's based. We've just picked up a new weapon, the Boomerang, which its designated ability is probably the weakest of the bunch, but it's still worth talking about when we get the chance to.
These two are Billy Bob and Polk. And that's Nayo.
Hi. My name is Yuffie, Materia Hunter and Elite Special Forces Operative for the new Wutai government. I have orders to infiltrate Shinra HQ and steal their ultimate materia, to prove to our common enemy that Wutai is not to be trifled with. Members of Avalanche, with your full support, we got this!
Ready to rumble, huh?
You better believe it! So, did you guys meet Sonon yet? He was supposed to be here.
Yeah, he got in 3 days ago.
He's out on the town as we speak. Really seems to be enjoying it here.
Oh, he does he?
You, got any bags?
As if. Ninjas always travel light. It's like a rule. But I did bring these, Wutai's famous Dachau beans. Eat up. And here you go.
Can you eat these things? Guess you do.
Sheesh, you ninjas are insane.
Do me a favor, Yuffie, and wait here for Sonon. I gotta head out. Your ID should be ready for pickup by now.
Then why don't I join ya?
Nah, I got this. Besides, you reek of trouble.
Do you see what I mean by, like, Yuffie's like a complete goofball? She's got like a real childish heart to her, and she just kind of has like a spring of life and a bounce that none of the other characters really have. And I say that knowing that like Aerith can be very cheeky in the main story, and everyone's kind of got a little bit of a wink when they want to. But Yuffie's on a whole other level. She's genuinely just having fun. Like, even when things get serious, or even when she's complaining about something, like, she doesn't like Midgar at all. That much is very clear right from the start. She doesn't care for Midgar in the slightest, which makes sense considering she's from Wutai. And Midgar and Wutai were at war. She's literally in enemy territory as far as she's concerned. So everyone, and I mean everyone, is an enemy as far as she is prepared to look at it. Clearly there are exceptions, like she's prepared to show a little bit of respect towards Avalanche because they're trying to take down Shinra. In her mind, she sees it more as they're trying to take down Midgar from the inside, when that's not really it. They're trying to protect the actual innocent bystanders, the people of Midgar. Has any sense of Avalanche, tries to protect the world. it's Shinra they're after, but Yuffie doesn't really see the difference because Midgar is part of Shinra as far as she's concerned. All of them attacked her home, and that's the end of it. The rest of this video is basically going to be me talking to these 3 members of Avalanche. And if you're sitting there going, well, hang on a minute, Avalanche, isn't that Barrett's lot? Well, it kind of is hinted and implied and talked about here and there in the main story. But Barrett's version of Avalanche are very much seen as like the bad eggs of the resistance, because they're so much more aggressive. They very much are more in line of eco-terrorism, whilst the rest are more peacekeepers trying to do their bits to turn the tide, to make their voices known. And Yuffie is now with the main branch, and like I said, so he's with the peacekeepers, which is interesting because we never really got that in the original. We knew that they said that Barrett's branch were very much the extremist groups, but we never really got to meet the original Avalanche in any sense of the word. We never really got to spend time with them or anything like that. So the fact that we get to hear more of them in the remake story and now meet some of them in Intergrade just adds that extra element to keep it interesting, to that you get to learn more about the world that we never got to in the original. You get to see firsthand the difference between Avalanche and Barrett's Avalanche, and I say because these guys really are a lot more down to earth, peaceful people. They're not extremists trying to turn the ride and kick off a war. They're just kind of, they're a lot cozier. Like, they're trying to do their bit to help the people, but they're not trying to, you know, corner an angry fox kind of thing. They're not trying to anger the bull so much. They're just trying to make a difference. And I love that from Yuffie, because that's such an applicable and applicable statement even now, of the whole culture of looking down on turns of the tide. And I mean, even I know this entire bit is like more of a jab at, you know, the old people not liking the new people and their new things, but we all do it. New things come and go every day. There's new things, way of life, new ways of surviving, new ways of earning money, new ways of enjoying the little things, new ways of appreciating things. And some of them are hideous, some of them are really bad and deserve to die, like NFTs, for example, and crypto shit. But there are a lot of things like, oh, I don't know, making content on YouTube. That is a really fun thing and is something that can be a path for the future. And there are others who look down on it. There are things that I know I kind of raise an eyebrow to and don't think much of, that other people love, and then lo and behold, they start making money off it. And I'm like, okay, to each their own. You know, like, it's so easy for us, and I said we all do it. It's not just a thing the older people do, even though it sometimes feels like it's the most apparent, but that's a topic for another time. We all do it where because it's not in our bubble of what we're used to, we don't think much of it, or worse, we look down and judge for it. And I'm not about to start preaching, obviously, because that's not me. Like, if you've watched my content enough, you know there are things that I don't like, and I'm very open about it, that I know other people do. I always just try to be the best version of myself when I can, and improve on myself when I'm not. But anyway, it's still very applicable, like, to everyone, regardless of age, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to get at. Like, even if now, like, right now when you're watching this, you might sit and go, oh, this guy's not quite the same as other streamers, he's not as good. And yeah, I know I'm not as good, I'm nowhere near that level, because I don't have any editing experience. I'm all first-hand, learned by myself through willpower on my editing skills. I didn't follow any programs and whatnot. My writing, I spend way too much time on with nothing to show for it right now, and I can't draw to save my life, but I'd love to learn how to one day. And I'm also attempting to learn Japanese, and getting very small pieces through it, but I'm not about to start speaking it fluently, you know? Like, I can't translate it. But it's still little things I like to do, and some people sit there and go, why are you doing that? What if you're not going to get anything of that, why not do something else? Or like, I've definitely know a few friends of mine that make money out of YouTube or Twitch, and they will have their parents say, why don't you get a real job? And it's like, they're literally earning more money than your quote-unquote real job. What the hell are you talking about? But, you know what I mean? Like, everyone has different things. Everyone has different ways of life. And it's so easy to be in your own bubble and in your own space and then just look down on the rest because it's not your thing. when in reality it might be a better thing for them than anything you've ever had in your life, and if you gave it a chance you might discover something new, even if it still isn't for you per se. But I need to talk about Fort Condor, this mini game that they brought into Intergrade that's I wasn't expecting to like when I first started it, but really came around to it as I got into it. I won't be able to talk about it too much because this is the tutorial game and it ends very quick, but I'm going to be doing almost all of them. Well, I said I am going to be doing all of them, I just won't be showing all of them on screen. I'll only show like the harder ones in the next video, just to keep the video length a little bit contained still. But Fort Condor is rock, paper, scissors with tower defense. Red beats green, green beats blue, blue beats red. So you need to pay attention to that and act accordingly. Blue is defensive, so they naturally have more health and defense, but they will still take extra damage from green and be cleaned up. Greens have very little health, and so it's very easy to one, if not two-shot them with a red, whilst reds have very high attack, but really can't touch defense units or the blues, so will just kind of outpower them eventually. As you can see there on the left, to summon a unit, you have to spend points that build up slowly in the top, like almost referencing the active time battle system that was in the classic Final Fantasies from 4 throughout to 9. You also have special abilities, but your special abilities are tied to what board you're using, because you can use your own board and you unlock new ones as you go. Boards will have different charge times for like the blue guards to go up, different amount of charges, so you can limit yourself, but it might be like super fast, but you can only summon up to 5 points. It might have different spells on it, etc, etc. There's a lot of different things that you end up considering. It's simple but complicated. It's rock, paper, scissors with tower defense. Like, so the rock, paper, scissors to simple, the tower defense to complicated. You need to know when to place your units down, when to act, whatnot. The best advice I could give you is if you're struggling with a fight, wait for the opponent to make the first move and prioritize countering it first. And with a certain one later on, because later on as we go on, you get to fight like the Grand Master. When you get to fight the Grand Master, depending on what unit they choose first, it's usually in your best interest to just restart until you get them to start on a unit that suits you. Like a unit that's easy to counter, so to speak. But I'm going to wrap this up here. I know it's a shorter-ish video, but I'm going to be steamrolling these videos just to try and make room for me to be able to do more Danganronpa streams. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Next time on the Final Fantasy VII Intergrade story, I know that's more of a mouthful, we're going to explore the sector again and do all the side quests that we have here in Sector 7. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.